After centuries of painstaking labor, the master of the vineyard makes a devastating observation. Every tree in his entire global vineyard produces completely corrupt fruit. Imminent judgment is the logical next step. The vineyard is ruined. However, his servant steps in and issues a desperate plea for one final intervention, and the master grants it. The parameters for this intervention are laid out in the Book of Mormon, specifically in Jacob chapter 5, verse 61. In this verse, the master issues a direct instruction to his servant. He tells him to go and call more servants. Historically, we identify these servants as the leaders and individuals called during the modern restoration to execute this specific, massive final labor. The weight of their task is cemented in the very next line, found in Jacob chapter 5, verse 62. The master declares, "Wherefore, let us go to and labor with our might this last time. For behold, the end draweth nigh, and this is for the last time that I shall prune my vineyard." Past eras involved scattering, apostasy, and various cycles of pruning and nourishing. This verse separates itself from all of that history by establishing an absolute deadline. It is the final, decisive action taken before the vineyard is ultimately cleansed by fire. This text serves as a precise, final-hour operational blueprint for planetary redemption. To execute this final labor, the master lays out an operational strategy that upends standard logical assumptions about how to order the work. The instruction is detailed in Jacob chapter 5, verse 63. The master commands his servants to graft in the branches, stating, "Begin at the last that they may be first, and that the first may be last." This timeline graph maps two distinct operations. Track A, the last branches, marks the spiritual gathering beginning in America around 1830. Track B represents the original Jewish population returning to their ancestral homeland. This physical gathering initiates later, gaining historical momentum after 1948. We can ground this timeline in literal geography. Returning the first to their ancestral homeland required a physical reclamation of historic spaces. It required a massive influx of people, entire families uprooting and relocating to fulfill this specific temporal node of the master's timeline. The divine order of operations required the system to build a spiritual foundation with the last branches before it could execute the massive physical relocation of the first. That specific order dictates when the work happens, but the text is equally strict regarding the methodology and pacing of the actual labor. We find the specific rule for pacing in Jacob chapter 5, verse 65. The master gives an explicit warning as the new graphs grow. Clear away the branches which bring forth bitter fruit, according to the strength of the good and the size thereof, and ye shall not clear away the bad thereof all at once. This diagram illustrates the systemic physics. An immediate overhaul poses a fatal risk. If all bad branches are cut simultaneously, powerful roots flood the tiny grafts with energy, killing them. Instead, a slow pace keeps the roots and fragile branches in a controlled equilibrium. This delicate balancing act has a highly specific endpoint, defined in Jacob chapter 5, verse 66. The labor continues until the good shall overcome the bad, at which point the remaining bad branches are hewn down and cast into the fire. That moment is the literal finish line of the entire historical process, the threshold where the system is finally cleansed. Global redemption is a calculated, pacing-controlled equilibrium that ensures the survival of the entire system. All of this careful timeline mapping and gradual pruning converges on a singular climax, the great unification of the scattered pieces. The physical realization of this is detailed in Jacob chapter 5, verse 67. The prophecy states that the branches of the natural tree will be grafted in again into the natural tree. The natural tree, or the mother tree, represents the original house of Israel, returning to its historical ancestral geography. But the unification extends beyond the original branches. We see the next phase in Jacob chapter 5, verse 68. The master dictates that the other scattered remnants will be grafted in with the natural branches until they shall be one. This encompasses disparate groups, like the lost 10 tribes. The teleological goal of all human history is to permanently heal these ancient divisions and completely consolidate them. It translates into the physical reality of a unified body, gathered and intact after thousands of years of separation. God's ultimate design actively eliminates separate, competing factions. The endpoint is one single unified entity producing pure fruit. Yet, as we look at the staggering scope of a globally unified tree, the text reveals a startling operational detail regarding the workforce assigned to build it. The allegory closes its description of the laborers in Jacob chapter 5, verse 70. After detailing the cosmic scale of the work, the verse states a simple, humble fact, and they were few. The task requires cleansing the entire globe and unifying thousands of years of scattered history. The operational workforce remains remarkably small, which leaves us with a profound question. What does it mean for a modern individual to be counted among those few? The weight of the responsibility placed on this small cohort is immense. They are tasked with executing the final, delicate equilibrium of the world. But matched with that responsibility is an unparalleled level of trust. The Master has chosen this specific group for the most critical season in the history of the vineyard. This allegory issues a direct, personal call to assume the heaviest historical privilege in the final moments of the world.